2 tables left in the main event, and a 24 blind stack is limping under the gun. What has the world come to, Jonathan? That is where we are in this hand that features Alec Torelli.
Yes, your favorite, and many others as well. Let's not forget also, there's 2 tables left in the main event, which means everyone's locked up a few $100,000, which is pretty awesome. But first place is $12.1 million. So there's like a crazy amount of money to be won here, and everyone has really got to be thinking about that.
And this is like a story that starts inside a whale or something. It just starts somewhere that you're not accustomed to. So we have to look at it from a strange perspective because, as I said, Joshy, Torelli's opponent in the hand, limps under the gun with 24 blinds and 2 sevens in his hand, which is a notable decision that I think must be discussed, even though it's not the biggest decision in the hand. What do you make of it, Jonathan?
It's surprising for sure. Like you're saying, inside a whale. I mean, you're being very assumptive about our audience. Some of them may have spent a fair amount of time inside whales. But anyway,
I was using actuarial statistics. Okay.
Okay. Don't try and talk your way out of this one, Grant. So anyway, what do I make of this? This looks like someone who feels like they really want to play this hand, but also want to minimize their losses to the point that they're often going to get themselves in trouble. This just feels like a mistake to me, this limp. Like I kind of think this is not a good way to play this hand.
Yeah, and you could invent a world where Joshy is being balanced and limps a lot of hands like this where he doesn't want to open but doesn't want to fold, but also limps hands like aces and ace-king with the intention of 3-betting, things like that. But in the main event, when this is a discrete scenario, you're very unlikely to be in a spot like this again against these players, maybe never play any of these players ever again. There's no need for that balance. So we should just play each hand practically as optimally as we can. And it seems to me that folding is probably plan A with 7s under the gun and 24 blinds, right?
Folding's got to be plan A. And if we just feel like we can't fold because we just love this hand too much, you could just min raise it. You put in 2 blinds instead of 1. And it changes the entire dynamic of the hand right away. We're not automatically going to see the flop 2-handed and often 3-handed and sometimes more-handed, as you're going to see in this case, where other players besides the blinds are going to come in. Like, we give ourselves a chance to win right now or be heads up most of the time.
We all know the reasons to raise.
Of course.
And Torelli may have entered the pot anyway, right? Even if Joshy raised. Now, against a 24 blind under the gun open, maybe King Jack suited is a fold, especially when the structure is so good. Maybe Torelli just folds, but there's a lot of the time where Torelli is going to call anyway, right?
I think he's calling this hand. Also, let's remember there's Wyman is in the big blind and there's chips to potentially win off of him as well. He's being invited in. He's going to be getting 5.5 to 1 to close the action, assuming no one else raises and no one else comes in the pot.
Well, Wyman's like a vampire, man. You don't want to invite him in. You know what happened in the end, right?
What do you mean? Did he get the stake through the?
He won the main event, but that didn't happen in this hand.
Right, that's later.
Okay. So we do go 3 ways to the flop in a limped pot, which automatically in the year 2023 makes things different than normal.
It's true.
And another notable decision comes about, and this time again from Joshy, when he decides to bet his 2 sevens into 2 opponents on the King 10 deuce board. I feel like it's time to cut your losses at this point. Like, you lost 1 blind instead of 2. Congratulations. Why are we betting on this board? This feels like it's just not going to get through often enough to make it profitable.
At least he barely bet any chips. He bet $750K, which is 1.25 blinds.
Yeah.
So that makes it, I think, at least fine. He's going to get this through maybe enough of the time that this is worth it, but barely. I mean, I wouldn't have ever been in this situation anyway because I would not have limped this hand. But I don't completely hate this, but it does feel like strange to bet now. We're not even in position. Feels like, we're often just going to check fold this hand. We didn't flop a set, and we didn't flop like 4, 5, 6. Get the open-ended straight draw and the overpair. I'm with you, bro.
All right, well, you know who else is with Joshy? Both of his opponents, because they both have kings and they both call.
Yeah, Joshy's like, never mind.
Until the miracle turn, the 7 of clubs, which obviously is a huge card for Joshy, but also for Torelli, who makes the second nut flush draw with this card. Now I totally understand why Joshy is betting again, right? Now he's like, oh, baby, get me some value in here. Let's go for some value. Let's deny some equity. I might double up in this hand if things go really the right way, right? He's almost never, ever behind. It's effectively the nuts. It's really hard for either opponent to have 10s or kings.
Yeah, if someone had 10s or kings, they're just going to raise to try and isolate Joshy and get his 24 blinds in, I would think.
You would think, yeah.
Feel very comfortable
There's
doing
a small
that.
chance Torelli can have 10s, but it's rare.
Yeah, and if he does, he does at this point. Like, if it's set over set, we're going broke as Joshy, and that's that, right? We just don't worry about it.
Right, agreed. So Joshy bets his $3 million. And Torelli, if the year were 2006, I think would raise pretty often. And I think most players would, because that was just the way people played back then when you had a pair and a flush draw. But in the current iteration of poker, it doesn't seem like there's much reason to raise with top pair and a flush draw, right?
Sure.
Like we're going to get action from hands like pocket sevens, which have us in very bad shape. We have plenty of showdown value against whatever bluffs we can potentially construct, which we are going to talk about later. Feels like calling is the only play for Torelli.
I mean, what good things happen if we raise? I guess we could fold out queen jack exactly, which we block, but we could fold out some. But we also, they only have 6 outs, right? Because we have the club outs.
Right.
The ace of clubs and the 9 of clubs help us, not them. And that could be a real cooler spot if it even comes in. Is king queen gonna fold? Maybe if we raise it will. Maybe we can fold out some of these, a few better hands, slightly better hands, but that's if they even decide to fold. Is aces, if somehow he limped aces, which is not impossible on a 24 blind stock under the gun, is he folding that if we raise?
No, I don't think so.
So, and then he's probably not folding ace king either. So maybe we get lucky and fold out king queen. Maybe not. Because really king queen plays the same as ace king pretty much.
All right, so we like Torelli's call.
Yeah, of course. He has to call.
Wyman is a rudimentary fold.
Rudimentary. I love it.
Let's get to the river, the
Here we
good
go.
stuff.
This is where it gets real.
It gets very real. So Joshy makes a full house. Congratulations, You've locked it up. It's a wonderful time. Obviously, it's time to go for value. He does the cool thing of not going all in, but leaving himself about $1 million behind. There could be some strategy to this if he believes that Torelli perceives him as a guy who's just trying to preserve a little bit of his tournament life in the main event. The main event's really getting to him. That maybe it makes it less likely that he could possibly be like having value here. Like he's going to have bluffs a little bit more often because of that.
I mean, I don't know if I really buy the story because he only leaves himself $1 million left as opposed to like even leaving himself $2 million. He's leaving himself 1.5 blinds. It's so little play.
Well,
even like 4 blinds would be so much more believable. Like, okay, he's trying to preserve something.
If that's not the reason, then I don't know what the reason is.
Me
because
either.
the words, Torelli's a pro. The words all in aren't going to affect him in such a way that he's going to change his decision over the difference in the math of $1 million chips.
Agreed.
Right? So it seems like I don't really understand why he's doing it, but whatever, that's not the big thing. The big thing is
This.
that Torelli ends up calling. So
yeah, let's talk
that through. We have to ask ourselves as Torelli, what in the world can we beat that Joshy would play this way? And the first thing that comes to mind is nothing. Now, Torelli has been playing with Joshy, and maybe he recognizes something in Joshy that we do not, as people who have not been playing with Joshy. I didn't watch all of this happen. I don't know everything that Joshy's done. But if Joshy would... like we know Joshy bet 7s on the flop. That was a bit of a strange decision. He bet 7s on the turn. Didn't feel strange because he made a set. If he had 8s, would he have bet the turn?
I do not believe so.
I don't think so either, but I would have never expected him to bet the flop.
Okay,
So-
but again, he bet 1.25 blinds on the flop. He bet 5 blinds on the turn.
Yeah.
Too, right.
Fair. I'm trying to be as generous as possible with Torelli's decision here
Sure.
because once we get into the technical aspects of it, it doesn't look amazing.
From a GTO point of view, this seems like a complete disaster, right?
Right, because one thing we use in GTO is distribution, which is where our hand falls in all of the possible hands that we got here with. And that's not only hand rank, but what we block.
Mm-hmm.
And this hand might be the nut bottom hand in both of those cases because obviously if we have king 10 that we limp behind, that's a better hand. We have 2 pair. If we have king queen, that's a better hand by rank. If we have, for any reason, a deuce in our hand, I don't know how we get here with a deuce.
Me
I guess
either.
if we have ace deuce of clubs specifically, we
Okay.
get here with ace deuce of clubs.
Yeah.
Obviously that's a better hand. To be fair, there's not that many hands in Torelli's distribution when he limps behind pre-flop and gets here. It's mostly those hands that I talked about and maybe a couple of nut flush draws that completely missed, which are not likely to be here anyway because they called the flop.
We were talking before we started recording that perhaps Torelli could sometimes have king 9 of clubs,
but
with the limp back. Yeah.
that might actually be a better hand to call with than king jack
Yes.
of clubs because king jack of clubs, crucially, blocks all of the straight draws that Joshy could have, whereas king 9 of clubs only blocks jack 9 and queen 9, which are very unlikely for Joshy to have as straight draws.
Absolutely. Having just the jack of clubs in our hand, as you're saying, is like the nut low card to have here,
Yeah.
right? Like that's the card we least want to have because it blocks all the things we'd want our opponent to have. So now we just have to believe Joshy has completely lost his fucking mind. Otherwise, like, how is this going to work? How can we ever win? Right.
We block clubs, which is bad. We block straight draws, which is bad. We never beat value. I don't
Ever.
imagine Joshy's doing this with king 9.
No chance he's doing this with king 9 unless Torrelli knows something that we don't, but he tanked for so long. I don't think he's thinking that. What's interesting to me about all this, too, is that Torrelli knows all these things we're talking about. He's a pro.
He definitely knows.
He knows about these blockers. He's thinking about this and still decides to call anyway. So what's that about?
It's one of two things. It's either he has a bad, or maybe three things. He has a bad read on Joshy where he thinks he picked up some sort of physical tell that was incorrect.
Yeah.
That's one. He's got history with Joshy where he's just seen Joshy do erratic things over time. And he's like, even though this is very near the bottom, if not the bottom of my distribution, I have to make this call against this frickin' guy.
Yep.
Or number three, the fatigue of the main event has gotten to him and he just can't think straight right now. And he's like, I have top pair. I got nothing else to go on. I'm out of steam. I'm just going to put the chips in and hope it's okay.
That may sound like a strange thing for Grant to say, but it's day 8. They've been playing at least 6 days in a row, basically all, 12 to 14 hours a day. This is a real thing, and people do lose their minds a little bit. And it's actually one of the problems with playing the main event. If you aren't really up for that level of mental fitness, if you're not a mental athlete,
right,
a high-performance mental athlete, then you could really make some mistakes. And so perhaps that is not crazy that could have happened to Alec either.
It is not at all. So from our perspective, we have to say from a technical spot, this is just a huge mistake by Torrelli.
If you put me in this spot against any normal player, I think this is a really easy fold. Against any good player, I think this is a really easy fold. They have to be extra bad, or I think I have to have a dead read on
maybe
them.
Against Rigby, who was heavily featured in the main event, who's just super aggro. Like maybe somebody like that.
And you're just like, I just can't fold top pair to this guy.
Yeah.
It sucks that I have these blockers. It doesn't matter.
Right.
The jack clubs is the jack clubs. It doesn't matter. I've got king jack. This guy can do this with other stuff too. He's going to turn over deuce. Oh, deuce 3 is a problem actually. He's going to turn over just weird stuff. I have to call. Fine. But unless you know that about Joshy too, this is just a fold against almost the field in the main event with this many people left when he's limping at this many blinds.
Yep. So that's that. That's what we think. If you like this video, make sure to give it a like. See you next time.